you want to hit. All right, well, I would like to welcome everyone on behalf of Professional and Career Development Services and the Office of Community Engaged Learning. We are in our second season of the Careers in Social Change series, and we're really excited about this panel today. This is a part of Civic Action Week, a week full of events here at Drake, different volunteer opportunities, educational opportunities, just to encourage collective action in response to some of our persistent societal challenges. And we're excited to hear from our panelists on how they use their careers to create change. So I'm Amanda Martin. I'm the Assistant Director in the Office of Community Engaged Learning, and I'll be moderating tonight's panel. And then my colleagues, Renee Sedlacek-Lee and Crystal Stanley, they will be helping to gather any questions that may pop up from you all in the chat box. You're also welcome a little bit later to unmute yourselves, raise your hand, and ask some questions as well. But our panel series are based off of the Pathways for Civic Action and Social Change. This is a framework that helps us understand that there are various paths for getting involved in service, community, and social change activities. So we are fortunate to be joined this evening by Jacob Nastras, Coordinator for Volunteer Services and Community Engagement with Children and Family Urban Movement, or CFUM, Elizabeth Talbert, Associate Professor of Sociology here at Drake, and Corey Lewis, founder of My City, My Health, and works at Broadlawns. And just before we get started with our questions, just a couple of housekeeping things. I would like to ask that everyone, aside from our panelists, take themselves off video just to help with our network capacity, and then to please mute yourself when you're not speaking. That would be great. For those who have recently joined us, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box by sharing your name, your major, where you're from, your year, things like that. If we have any alums on the call tonight, you can share the year that you graduated. We may also, throughout the panel, be putting some helpful links into the chat box too, so feel free to keep an eye out for that. But as I mentioned, we would love for the panelists to be able to hear any questions that you have. So as they are talking, feel free to put questions that come to mind in the chat box, or you can raise your virtual hand and unmute yourself and ask the questions yourself. We are also recording this panel, so you can watch it again later or share it with your friends who were unable to attend. All right, so it is universally understood that volunteerism is good and a needed part of social change, but we often forget that there are amazing career opportunities that spur social change. This Careers in Social Change series focuses on those careers, and I'm going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about their roles and background, and what drew them to their involvement in this area. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I will ask Crystal to go ahead and spotlight our three panelists. Perfect. And then the first panelist that I'm going to ask is Corey. If you can, again, just share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Was that for me? Sorry, you were.
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry. Hi, everybody. My name is Corey Lewis. I do a few things. So
Corey froze for me. Did he freeze for other people too? Oh, shoot. Okay. Corey, we can't hear you, just FYI. Okay, let's have Jacob introduce himself, and then just in case Corey can't hear me, maybe we have another Corey. Okay, Jacob, would you mind going first?
Yeah, no problem. Okay. I'm Jake Nastris. I am the coordinator for volunteer services and community engagement at CFUM, or Children and Family Urban Movement. A little bit about my backstory. I've kind of gone all over the place. Started out my career in the Army National Guard here in Iowa and worked on electronics and avionics for helicopters. And after that, kind of while I was in the Guard, found a passion of working for the church and decided to do a mission year over in South Africa, and realized that my passion was working with kids and youth and helping them grow in their faith and as people. And kind of came back stateside thinking that I would work for the church full time, and did children youth ministry. And when I moved back to Des Moines, I had a friend reach out and kind of guide me to CFUM and all the great programs that it has to offer. And now I get to encourage others to volunteer and get involved with social change every day. So that's kind of fun.
Awesome. Thanks for that introduction. Corey, you want to try again?
Yes, technical difficulty. So hopefully you guys can hear me now. Corey Dion Lewis. I am the clinical health coach at Broadlawns Medical Center within our primary care clinic. What I do there is I help our patients improve their health through health education, and I do disease management and lifestyle management with the population that we serve. Outside of Broadlawns, I started a company called The Healthy Project, where I do health equity content around health disparities, culture in healthcare, racism in healthcare, and how we can improve our underserved and most vulnerable communities. And I speak with healthcare leaders and thought leaders from all over the world in that podcast. It's done really, really well. Outside of that, I also started, as you guys know, My City, My Health, which is a health equity conference series where we have those same conversations that I have from the podcast, but specifically with community leaders and healthcare leaders within the city. So we had our first conference last year, My City, My Health Des Moines, here in Mainframe Studios. We have one coming up in April in Iowa City, and we're already planning for Des Moines again for November of this year. So just continuing that conversation around health equity and how we can improve the health of those that need it the most.
Fantastic. Thank you. Professor Talbert.
Hey everyone, I'm Elizabeth Talbert. I apologize for my voice. This is my teaching day and I'm getting over a spring cold. So this is my first year as a tenure track professor at Drake. I've been teaching here as a visiting assistant professor for a while. I'm originally from Ames, but spent a lot of my adult life out east. I got my PhD at Johns Hopkins, and there I studied housing and housing programs and poverty and inequality. Did a lot of research about that. When I got to Drake, was contacted by Renee Sedlacek-Lee, who asked me, hey, do you want to combine forces and do a project about affordable housing in Des Moines with one of your classes? And I said, yeah, that sounds great. I teach interviewing as the method in the sociology department. If you're here at Drake, think about taking that in the fall because it's a fun class and we go out and do projects. And last summer kind of got hooked up with the homelessness service providers here in Des Moines and did a large study about what it's like to live unsheltered in Des Moines in the summer and in the winter. And we surveyed 150 people and talked to almost 40 people in in-depth interviews. Wrote a report that's now kind of being shopped around with the city council. So hopefully making some real change as far as what we can provide to our homeless neighbors here in Des Moines.
Awesome. And Renee just put the link to that report in the chat. Just listening to all of your introductions, there's such a wide variety of work that you're all doing. And I think it just goes to show that there are any number of careers and career paths that can be used to create change. In my introduction, I mentioned the pathways for civic action and social change I'll just point out a couple of those pathways. So community engaged learning and research. And I think Professor Talbert is a great example of that and ways that students can get involved in research and community engaged learning here at Drake. But also how you can make a career out of that. Direct service is another one of the pathways. And I think the work that CFUM does is a good example of direct service and providing some of that direct support and programming and resources for some of our youth in the community and others too. You know, that he can talk more about some of the services they offer, but meals for the community. And then Corey, I would say, you fall under, and I think all of you do in some way or another, but fall under a number of our pathways. But one that we were thinking about for you is community organizing and activism. So you've recognized that there are some needs in the community and put together opportunities to help address those. But I think you're also doing community engaged learning and research, maybe some policy and governance even, if you're helping to formulate policy that impacts the things that happen in our communities. So just wanted to point out a few of those pathways and how people in our community are working within those in their careers. So again, students, feel free to start formulating some questions, but I will just go ahead and ask a question in the meantime. What do you like best about your roles, and what is something that is challenging about your roles? And let's start with Corey.
You know what I love about my role, and I'm talking specifically about what I do at Broadlawns, is honestly working with the community that I serve. So when you think about Broadlawns and you think about some of the patients that we have, or kind of the stigma around those patients, you would think that they don't want to be well, or they don't want to change, or they don't want to get better. But once you get to learn that it's not that they just don't know how to do it. They don't feel like they can because they don't have the resources. So being able to help them improve their health and improve whatever social determinant that it is, through finding resources within the community to help them improve their health. Some of the things that, when I'm working with patients, a lot of the things that I'm providing them that's helping them improve their A1C or improve their blood pressure isn't talking about fruits and vegetables. It's getting them rent assistance, or finding them services for their rent assistance, so they're not stressed out about not being able to pay their bills, or finding them food services where they can, a lot of people that I serve are on food assistance that they get $120 for the month. They run out half of the month. Now they're trying to supplement through the food pantries or whatever the case may be. So just kind of helping them through that. So I really, really enjoy that. On the flip side of that, the same reason why, I enjoy it, there are challenges with it, because, we're dealing with patients or people who have years and years of certain behaviors that we're trying to change. And sometimes it's hard to change those. They're not ready to change, or some people aren't just, ready, or they just feel like they just can't. And it's a constant struggle of trying to help, but also not be the one doing all of the work, because they still got to do some of this work to themselves. So I feel like within Broadlawns, that's the biggest challenge for me.
Thank you. Jacob?
So, as I kind of mentioned in my intro, I think the thing I love most about my job is that I get to encourage people to get involved in social change and being a part of it on a daily basis. Whether it's reading with a kid to help them with their reading level, or feeding the community every day and making sure those people in need don't go hungry, and things like that, or going to community members such as Drake and meeting with Amanda and having the J-term class come down here to help at the start of the year. Those are always fun opportunities to have. And I think the downside to that is just being very aware of all the inequities in the world and those struggles that people have on a daily basis, and not being able to help each and every single one, but doing our best to do so.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
All right. My favorite part, I always tell people the best part of my job is that I get to go sit in people's homes or across a coffee shop table from them and hear their stories. And that's, and now that I get to do that and kind of for better policies and for better community, for people who are marginalized, I think that's really my favorite part, and working with students and kind of with community organizations too. So creating a movement of understanding as well as kind of new insights through research is my favorite part of the job. Finding funding is a challenge always. So I do a lot of writing. I'm sure that my two fellow presenters on the panel will say the same thing. It's sometimes a challenge to kind of patch everything together and really keeping the energy up, like Jacob said, when you see such inequities in the world, and really, hoping that tomorrow you may be a little closer to trying to, make an actual change in the world.
So how do you all incorporate community voice into the work that you do? How do you get to know people, and why is that so important? And you can go in any order that you want.
So I'd say the listening to the community is just being very intentional and building relationships with everyone who walks through our door. So, just because somebody might be homeless doesn't mean they're not a person and has an honest opinion about how we can do better as a program. So I think one thing that we're trying to do to work better at is listening to the community a little bit more on, what do they want for supper club, and what are they looking for as a time for childcare? Do they want care till 6 o'clock or 5:30, or maybe it's at 4:30, that's all they need? And being able to talk with each one specifically helps us really be able to do that.
Oh, go ahead, Corey.
No, you're good, Elizabeth. Go for it.
I was going to say the thing I keep in mind as far as incorporating community is everything I do from the moment I reach out to a community organization or I'm put in touch with one to the moment I'm talking to an individual that organization may serve is promoting dignity through kind of the respect and rapport building that everybody desires and everybody really needs to feel okay. And so I train student interviewers to do the same thing. And I think being open and being very receptive to people on different levels of organization and people with very different experiences is really important in engaging community in the work I do.
So for me, I was asked a similar question a few weeks ago, and I gave kind of like a basketball answer. I'm a big sports guy. And I said, to get in better basketball shape, you got to play basketball. So to understand the community, you got to get into the community. I mean, just hands down. And there are so many organizations, small community-based or nonprofit organizations within Des Moines that are more than happy to take your volunteer hours and to learn from the community. And that's really what helped me with the My City, My Health conference was, when I first started it, I knew much about my space. I knew about my space within the community, but I didn't know the whole community. So it was important to get people in the room that knew about education, who knew about other areas of the community that needs to be served. So the audience can hear and we can figure out how we can improve, from there, because they're experts everywhere. I'm not the expert in every aspect of Des Moines community, but you got to get out there. and get from behind the desk or from wherever you're at and just get out there and ask questions.
Yeah, great advice. Thank you. So you all have very different backgrounds that led you to where you are. Do you think there is a typical path to your career, either educational wise, work wise, or how can students or others get involved in this type of work?
I'll start. My path to health equity is probably different than a lot of people. So I'm probably one of very few people that have a degree in health coaching, because at the time there was no department for it. So my degree is in interdepartmental studies with a specialization in health coaching. And, and also growing up in a culture where chronic disease and health disparities were just normal. Like you didn't know that you were growing up in, underserved community, or because you just didn't know. It's just, you're just used to it. And as I grew up and started to realize, hey, some of these things aren't right. Like this isn't how someone should be growing up. You know what I mean? And you start to just get a passion to make sure the next generation or the next person doesn't grow up the same way you did. So Broad Lawns really helped highlight that, magnify that for me, and introducing me to the community that I love to serve. So it kind of, in a way, just kind of fell in my lap. I was already working at Broad Lawns. I was getting paid to do this work. Some personal things happened with, disparities with how my mother was treated in healthcare. That's kind of how I started the Healthy Project in My City, My Health. And it was just a no-brainer for me to want to continue doing this work and making sure that that health is equitable for all, and that people of color are not fearful of getting care, rebuilding that trust in the healthcare system, but also holding people accountable. It was just kind of natural. I have no more words.
I
Thank
think my path here, I've always liked to be a student, but I've also always liked to be a teacher. I did Teach for America right after college when that was big in the early aughts, and realized what was important to me was connecting with students and their families. And then I did something strange and went to film school for 2 years. And I was wanting to make documentary films and realized about halfway through that I didn't really care about the filmmaking as much as I cared about the people I wanted to make the films about. So went and kind of started doing interviews without the camera and trying to understand how social inequities are presented in regular everyday life, but also how policies hurt and ameliorate those inequities as well. But I would say find something that you really love to do, because this is, what I really love to do. My mode is doing interviews and writing papers and getting to work with organizations. Then you find the people you want to work with. So learn what you love to do, and then find the organizations and people you love to work with, and you feel like you're contributing to. And that's how I'm trying to create my career. But everything is always a little zigzaggy in the world of academia.
I'd say my path is not very common. I've always known that I wanted to serve, though, and that's been the basis of kind of everything that I've done in life. So whether it's serving in the military or serving in the church and on mission trips, that's been kind of my starting point. And everywhere that I've gone has been more somebody telling me that, hey, this would be a great fit for you, and them realizing that. So I think for me, if you know that your passion is serving others, you'll always find something and some way to do that, no matter what it is. And then what your specific passion is will find you along the way. So it took me 6 years to find out that my passion was working with children and youth and helping them. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to pause just a moment and see if we have questions from the audience. So again, feel free to just raise your virtual hand or put some questions in the chat box. We have 3 very interesting panelists here who would have great things to share. So what questions do you have? Okay, while you are all still thinking, I'm going to ask another question to our panelists. So what are ways that you think Drake students, college students could get involved with your work right now?
Mine's kind of easy. I have it preset. So I'd say, send me an email. jacob@cfum.org is the best way to start. And then to get involved, we have kind of our 3 main programs of the Breakfast Club, which is 6:30 to 7:30 in the morning. You get to hang out with kids, feed them a hot breakfast, and get their day started off right. We have our Supper Club program that feeds 150 meals to the community every weekday. So come from 3 to 5 o'clock and help us prepare the meals from 3 to 4. And then we start serving at 4 o'clock till 5. And then our Ed Success program is if you want to volunteer with kids, maybe read a book, play some sports and run around, draw a picture, help with an activity. That's every weekday from 2:40 till 5:30. So all great ways to get involved.
Also send me an email if you're interested in doing community engaged research. I have always too many projects going on. I love to work with students both as paid RAs when I have research money and also with independent studies. But I also just have a good time brainstorming what you can do on your, looking at other organizations. What are your interests? What kind of volunteering might you want to do? Where do you want to go? So I'm here at Drake as a resource. If this is kind of the career, you want to start talking about, I'm happy to serve as a point person for you here too.
Yeah, and to follow my fellow panelists, shoot me an email at Corey@thehealthyprojects.co. We are currently about to have our second conference in Iowa City, like I said earlier, April 28th. But soon after that, we are currently organizing for My City, My Health Des Moines, which will be November 17th at Mainframe Studios, where we will need volunteers for some of our surveys, making sure we're making sure that we're asking our panelists the correct questions that can better going to serve Des Moines, and just getting involved in any way possible with that. So if there's any way you want to get involved there, let me know. And yeah.
No shortage of opportunities. Let's talk about skills a little bit. So what are some of the transferable skills that people can get from doing this type of work, do you think? And how might that benefit them for their futures?
Elizabeth mentioned one earlier of empathy for others. So I think that goes a long way no matter where you are in life. So, yeah. Learning
how to listen with an ear for what you're not expecting, as well as, responding in a way that is appropriate and kind, I think is a huge life skill as well as a good professional one to have.
I would just have to, just co-sign what Jacob said, man. Empathy is so important in this work. Some of the work that we do, if we're being honest, is important work, but not a lot of people care about it. Like it's hard work. Like it's you're in a helping profession, so your heart's already in it. You want everything to go really, really well. and there are going to be times where it doesn't. And how do you, and you got to get up the next day with the same type of enthusiasm, empathy for people, and just continuing and being strong. So that heart of empathy is super important. I would also say that sometimes this work is inconvenient, and it needs to be inconvenient. So if if you're serving when it's convenient for you, is not really service. So just understanding that there's going to be sacrifices in some of the things that you do, and if you're okay with that, and that's, and you're about that service life, then you'll be great.
I also think
That's a great reminder. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the kind of going off what Corey says, the ability to adjust quickly and be flexible, to remain calm in tough situations, and know it's going to work out somehow. I think that is a very transferable skill to just about everything that you will do in your life as well.
Yeah. I was gonna say that service above self quote. I think maybe the Rotarians use that, but it can be easy for college students to say, well, I'm free, Saturdays at noon. So what do you have for me? Well, that's not always the most convenient time for the community partners or the community. So again, looking at what's most needed and how can you fit yourself into that? So we have
Absolutely.
a question from Chase. Go ahead, Chase.
Hi. So going off of what Corey said about how when you serve, if you serve only when it's convenient, then it's not really service. With you guys in your careers, what's something that you had to sacrifice?
Oh, yeah. So during, there have been times where I've had to miss basketball games. I have 2 kids, you know what I mean? There's times where I had to miss basketball games. And there are times where I'd have to tell my son I couldn't go. And Chase, my man, that sucks. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't feel good to tell your 8-year-old son, hey, I know you're super pumped about this game, but there's this thing I got to go to that I'm not getting paid for. I'm volunteering my time, and I got to go to it. And they don't understand. But my job is to, just as a father, in trying to show them that service is great. Sometimes there's going to be sacrifices. And there are times where, at this point, my kids are a little bit older, 12 and 10 now. So they know, daddy, he has a lot going on, and they're okay with it, but it doesn't feel good that they're okay with it. You know what I mean, Chase? So, yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Corey. I think that the kind of work that I do is probably much more scheduled in some ways, but it can be very unscheduled. And, I have 3 little kids too. They always know that, mommy needs to answer emails after hours or do something, when you run a research study, it's kind of when people you need to talk to can talk, you talk to them, and try to figure out what they need and the help you can provide. So yeah, there's less of a divide between probably your work and your life than you could get in other professions. So it's a thing.
I don't have any kids, but I'd say taking time away from family is always tough. And whether it's, South Africa doing that mission year was the farthest I've ever been away from home. And that's a year without seeing any family, any friends, and missing out on opportunities to build relationships. And I'd say one thing that would be the biggest downside that I've noticed now is all those friends that I had coming out of high school that I had made, if I don't have strong connections with them anymore. Since most of my free time, when my friends would go hang out on a Friday night, I couldn't do that since I had a work event that I had to go run. and missing out on some of those connections and community is always a struggle.
Chase, anything you want to add?
No, that was great. Thanks for answering my question.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah,
And
good
maybe
question.
just to follow up on that question and those answers, I think sometimes a lot of the work that you do can be emotional. You know, you can get invested in it and in the people and the challenges. How do you find that maybe separation or that balance, and how do you take care of yourselves?
I will say in the beginning, it was really, really hard to separate when something didn't go the way that I was hoping that it would go for, or if patients' outcomes were just getting worse and worse. I was so vested in them improving their health or improving their situation. Lately, you know, since I've been doing it for a while, I would say I have things in my kind of my toolbox, my tool belt that really help me get through that. So for me, it's really I schedule quiet time for myself to kind of break away from certain situations, because what would happen would be I'd have a patient at 10 o'clock. We have a conversation from 10 to 10:40. It'd be very, very emotional. I'd be drained, but then I'd have another patient like 5 minutes later, and I didn't even have time to process my last one. I got another one that I got to give them my energy to. So I've really had to learn how to manage my energy, and to manage how I process and dealt with other people's problems. That's what I'm doing most of my day, is how can I help your problem be better? Then I was making it my problem too. So just really trying to balance that.
I'd say the hardest balance for me is keeping well balanced when things get busy. Right now, CFUM has a lot of open positions in our leadership team, and those roles have kind of gotten added on a few people's plates and have extra things to do. So managing time I have my job of volunteer and community engagement, but I'm also trying to run a separate club program, and I have to help in fund development. So it's more time management is the biggest struggle than anything, and feeling like I'm still giving 100% to each of those areas, and when time is limited to do it.
Yeah, I think also building your support network is a big part of this too. Knowing the people you need, not just to kind of talk to and, you know, unwind with at the end of the day, but the people who you can call on to take something off your plate if you need that, and making sure that you have that support both personally and professionally, and you know who you can go to at certain times and when you need to go.
Yeah, I think we can only help other people if we're also helping ourselves first. So some good ideas there. Okay, what other questions do you all have?
This is Renee. I'll ask a question. If you were looking back to the Jacob, Elizabeth, or Corey, who was, let's say, getting ready to graduate from college, what advice would you give yourself? What would you tell your younger self?
What would I tell myself? The first thing that comes to mind when I think about that is I would say, young Corey, give yourself some grace because you think you know everything and you know nothing about life. Like, it reminds me, I told this story before when I had a health coaching class, and the major project was to record yourself giving a health coaching session to another student. And it was like 60% of your grade. So I recorded myself and my friend Alex, and I'm giving this great health coaching session, and he's just answering every question just perfectly. And I'm like, I'm the best health coach ever. And when I actually got into the world and I had a patient at Broadlawns who, let's just say it didn't go the way I thought it would go, because I thought I was the perfect health coach. And sometimes life is going to throw you curveballs. It is what it is. So just giving myself some grace and understanding that I'm going to have to just roll with the punches sometimes, and understand that you'll still figure it out. It just may take you longer.
And if I can just add in really quick, I think that goes along with one of our True Blue skills, and Crystal put a link to those in the chat box, but just having that growth mindset too, learning from those opportunities, and then what might you potentially do differently next time. You realized you didn't know it all. So maybe there was something you took from that you adjusted the next time. So.
Absolutely.
I would tell my younger self, you don't have to be afraid of not being the best. You can still do really good work. I think that that's really important, to allow yourself to be imperfect and to allow your journey to have twists and turns you're not considering, and to still realize that, like, when you bring yourself to the work you do, and you do it with my speaker just changed, sorry, that you don't have to be perfect to do it.
That's good. I like that.
What? No.
I don't know. So I never went to college, so I'd say just the advice I would give my younger self would be to live through the struggles and just kind of deal with things as they come. Don't try to run away from it and avoid it. You're always going to hit moments in life where things are going to be hard. Hindsight's always 20/20. And I would say every difficult moment where I have thought, I've had enough, I'm fed up, I want to be done with this, I've looked back on it, and they're the biggest learning moments in my life. So don't just give up and run away.
Thank you all.
Other questions? Jack.
Yeah, so my question is, when you're doing this kind of work, there's obviously going to be a lot of obstacles to, reaching a goal, whether it be something financial or whatever else. And I guess in a field of work where you can't really do it if you are not passionate about it, I was wondering how you all kind of manage when you're unable to reach a goal.
Reset the goal. Sometimes I think you have to reframe what you're able to do. And because every time you're working in this kind of change, anytime you're working with people, right, things change really quickly. People are not going to ever act the way you expect them to, basically. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have goals going in, but again, the flexibility of, figuring out what the next right step is not necessarily going with the original goal, because you know something new, and something that you didn't know a day ago, and maybe needing to kind of adjust expectations. I think being okay with adjusting your expectations is one of the ways to feel like you can continue to do this work.
I would say, I would co-sign what Elizabeth said, but also when you redo that goal, reach out for people to help you. Like who has the resources or the skills that can help you with your goal. You don't have to do everything by yourself. You know what I mean? We don't have the time nor the energy to try to do it ourselves. So reach out, find your tribe, find the people that help you achieve that goal.
I love goal setting. So I'd say there's never a goal that I don't achieve. I just don't fully get there and get there in the way that I initially planned. So a little different. So I would say, like, if it's fundraising or getting to, I'll use volunteer hours. Like, one of my goals for each quarter is to have 3 times as many volunteer hours this year than we did last year. It's a big goal, but there's many ways to get to that goal that all look different. Looking at it as a simple number standpoint isn't always great. Look at it by the person. And, maybe I could ask, I'll use Elizabeth and Corey as my 2 examples. If maybe they give CFUM 1 hour a week. Maybe I look at it and ask them to give me 3 hours a week. And utilizing them, I think, as Corey was saying, finding my people to help me achieve those things. And if they're already passionate about it. So not only am I passionate, but I'm going to use other people's passion to help me get everywhere that I want to go.
I also think you raise a good point about the personal ask. And I think a lot of times people don't volunteer because they don't know how to get started or they've never been asked. And I think it's just an important piece to remember. Maybe you're wanting to go out and do something, but you don't want to do it alone. Ask a friend. And it's a lot harder to say no to somebody to their face. It's very easy to ignore an email, but it all goes back to the personal relationship building too. So maybe that's one piece of advice for all of you too, is find something you want to do and ask a buddy to go with you. And that at least doubles it. Ask 2 people and that triples it. There's Jacob's goal. I think we have time for a couple more questions. So what other questions you guys have? These are great questions and great answers. Working on being okay with more silence. Is there anything else jumping out to the panelists that we didn't ask you and you want to be sure to share?
Nothing that I can think of.
I would say, I mean, I know many of you are seniors and that's awesome. I want to know what you're all going to be doing next year. But I'd also say, don't hesitate to get involved here. Find something that you want to do and spend a little bit of your time every week doing that with the community and engaging with the community. I think we get really wrapped up in our own moments of academic stress and we don't remember that, we just think adding one more thing would be too much. But I really think that going out and doing things like this make everything else you're doing as a student seem much more purposeful as well.
If you are interested in that community engaged learning and research piece, Renee actually shared with me an opportunity earlier this week. I'm going to see if I can put the attachment in the chat box, but it's an opportunity to do some research right here in the Des Moines area, in DMPS, and to get paid for it too. So that's kind of nice if that's something you want to just try and see if it's something that you are interested in. I guess another thing is you can try different things, and if you don't like them, you move on to something else. I also think volunteering and community engagement can be a way to help clarify what you do and don't like. And maybe as you're thinking about different career paths, you try something out, you learn something from it. Maybe you realize that's not what you want to do as a career, and that can be one benefit too. So just getting to know different populations of people, the different work environments, there's lots of different benefits. Okay, let me see if I can't put this in the chat box, I'll send it out to all of the people who are on the call afterwards. But it is Civic Action Week, so we do encourage you to get involved in some other opportunities happening this week too. But really want to thank our panelists for providing their insights and their input today. I just find all three of you to be so inspiring and getting so much work done in our local community. Please, students, take advantage, take the opportunity to get involved with some of those initiatives or finding that thing for you. So yes, let's give them a virtual round of applause. Really appreciate it, all of you. Any final thoughts or questions? Seeing none, we will put the recording up on the Community Engaged Learning YouTube page, just Drake Community Engaged Learning, I think. Let me see if I can get this. Oh, I think I can get that in the chat box there. So that's a little bit about that research opportunity. Otherwise, I hope everybody has a great week and keep in touch.